It was at recess time, so most of us were not in our rooms. The children were on the yard. I happened to go to the office to call a parent. And as I was leaving the office, people started running into the office and saying that there was a shooter, or there was shooting on the yard. And they were locking the office down. And I actually had to push somebody aside from the doorway to get out of the office, to run across the yard to get back to my classroom. No, you can't go. No, you can't go. We don't know how many people are out there with guns. And I said, but my kids are out there. So, and to be honest, I don't even know who that was holding me. I pushed that person aside and went out the door, looked, because there is an open yard there, and then went through the building.
29 bullets came through the wall. We kept finding them during that whole year afterwards, in cupboards and through the door and through the above the blackboard, through the blackboard. 8 bullets continued through the whole width of the classroom into the next classroom, and 2 bullets continued out the front of the building. The room turned white, I think, from the plasterboard, and the sounds were tremendous. I don't know what was going through my mind. I was just trying to survive and help the children, and this little girl I had was calling for her teacher. She was a Cambodian child. And I could hear the helicopters and the sirens, and the sirens seemed like they never were getting any closer. They just were going on and on and on. It seemed to take forever for them to get here.
I remember Sue, who taught kindergarten just down the hall. We were just a few steps away from each other, coming in and coming around and ducking down behind the table there. And she said, "Oh my God, they're killing our kids." And I said, "What?" And she said, "That's gunshots. People are shooting guns." And I don't remember how I felt at the time, except that I think I just felt kind of cold. A fireman came in. I can't remember who he was, but I remember what he looked like. And I've never seen an expression like that on anybody's face. He was horrified. His job was to come through and make sure that everything was okay in the classrooms here. But he looked horrified and broken and also unbelieving. But I didn't ask him what happened or anything. He just wanted to know if I'd taken roll or if everything was okay in the classroom. And I didn't even ask him any questions about what was going on.
When I got to class, my students were already in the room. This is unusual, of course, because they have to stand in line when the bell rings. But of course, the teachers that had doors let all the students in, with gunshots. So they were all standing behind their chairs at the time. When I got there, everybody was perfectly silent. All 32 students were standing behind their chairs, not making a sound. It was extremely silent. There was not a sound. It was as if a cloud of shock and anguish had taken over and settled on the room.
When Un's parents came up, she hadn't come into the classroom, and I think we were told, I can't even remember how we found this out, but Pat was in the office talking to parents, telling them when their children were wounded, and I only walked with them. I said, "You need to talk to Mrs. Busher or something," and I didn't even walk all the way back with them. I had my students here, and then there was, I walked them as far as, I think, to approaching Pat's office, but I didn't even go in there with them, which I should have done, but I didn't even think about that till later. And then I went back with my students, and then Pat came out. It might have been 5 minutes later, it might have been 20 minutes later, I don't know, and she wanted me to go out onto the playground. And I can't remember who she sent with me, but she said, I want you to identify Owen. And that was the first inkling that I had that my student had died. And then we walked out on the playground, and it was, I think she was the only one out there. I think everybody else had been identified. And she was maybe this far from the door. And she was lying on the ground, and I think they had turned her over. And I looked at her, and I knew I knew it was Un, but I said, I don't know. I think it's her. You know, you look at a child's face. I think it was, I just couldn't believe that that's who it was. But I remember seeing her red shoes. She wore red shoes, and I always talk to her about her red shoes because red's my favorite color. And then I had to walk back up the hallway by myself, and they had to bring Judy out because Judy had Un for a reading, and they had to have Judy identify her because I was unsure. And then I walked back up to the cafeteria, and I can't even remember what happened the rest of the day. I can't remember. I just have this hazy memory of the rest of the day.
They asked the other teacher to identify her, and she wasn't completely able to say for sure. It seemed to be her, but... And then they came and got me to identify her, and I had the same reaction. I didn't know about the other teacher, but I had the same reaction. It looks like her, but I cannot say positively. So then I went back to the cafeteria where we were dismissing our students to their parents, and this feeling of guilt came over me that I was going to be able to go home to my daughters. I was going to be able to put them to bed and read them their story. I could say goodnight to them. But these parents could not ever